Travis Scott too. He was another one that came to our studio, Upcrown, and I actually did photos of Travis.
That's crazy. Dude. I want to hear about that story too.
He came to the studio, actually showed us his music, hung out for a few hours. He actually, he almost broke my camera, which is wild. I was just taking photos.
Yeah.
And he like grabbed my camera out of my hand and he threw it on the ground.
Welcome to the Mike Squires and Friends podcast. I'm your host, Mike Squires. Today I'm joined by my good friend, Chris Fulcher. Now, Chris Fulcher is an incredible photographer. Today we talk about some of his travel work and his editorial work, working with the likes of Russ, Travis Scott, Mayday Parade, Nightmare, and Tyla, Yaweh, and so many others. I also talked to Chris about some of his travel photography, going to places like Venice, Aruba, Santorini. Now, if you want to support the Mike Squires and Friends podcast, all you got to do is hit that subscribe button on YouTube or download on your preferred podcast platform. Now, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Mike Squires and Friends. Chris, how you doing, my guy?
What's up, man?
Dude, I'm super excited to have you today on the podcast. How's everything been?
Good, busy.
Yeah, I think I want to hop straight into your photography. What made you pick up the camera for the first time?
It's a long story, but
we're here for it.
Yeah, it's I did paintball. I did paintball for a long time as a kid, and the sport got too expensive. So I was traveling with teams, and my father, and this is before I had a license or even a permit, and I was probably from 12 to 15. I would travel with paintball teams and companies around the country, and we went to Florida, Maine, California, and I would play with these teams. We'd play D3, D2 paintball, and then just eventually, like the sport, I don't know if the sport got too expensive, but I talked to somebody that was at a competition one time that had a camera, and one day my parents, I think for my birthday, maybe my 13th birthday, they bought me a camera and I started shooting teams in the field. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So when you started shooting those teams in the field, like how did that transition into, music where I met you?
That's a good question. I think it was at a point where I remember I was doing paintball photography, and then it turned into the sport started dying, so I stopped doing that. And then I was doing like home portraits at my house, getting like Walmart lights and kind of doing like a setup with my friends. And we would just do like exaggerated portraits. And I remember we would like get props. I got a friend that was a firefighter, so he'd bring his firefighter gear, and I would like light stuff on fire around him. And we were just doing fun photos, man. And or like I remember I had this thing where like I would take cups of coffee and like throw like cookies or whatever in it to make like the splash effect for photos. And then the music stuff, I guess where it really started was I was, man, it's funny because there's a few different ways of how I started, but I met a kid in New Fairfields, Lars Principato.
Okay.
That's where it really started. I was probably dabbling a little bit beforehand. I used to work for this company called Peter Says Denim. Honestly, I really don't remember how I got started with Peter Says Denim, but I either reached out to them, probably I reached out to them because they're an Indonesian clothing line, but they were sponsoring Alternative Press magazine. That's actually how. So I must have, because I was a big fan of like Warped Tour and that kind of music at that time. And so long story short, reached out to the company. They were like down to work with me and do a photo shoot. And I was looking for models, and a friend of mine put me in touch with Lars Principato in New Fairfields, and he had a band. I forget what the band was called, but we did a photo shoot with him with the clothing, and then he actually ended up bringing me on Warped Tour, and we did Warped Tour together for like 2 years in a row.
One of the bands I saw you shoot with early on was Suicide Silence.
Yeah. Mitch Lucker, man. So when I was doing Warped Tour, which I believe was like, 2009 to 2011. Yeah, 2009, 2010, 2011. I was on Warped Tour and we did the whole, I think the first tour I did the East Coast, but then gradually just started doing like the whole entire country with Lars and other bands too. But that's how I met like the guys in Suicide Silence. I was just also like, I would just reach out to everyone, man. Like I just was like, hey, look, you need photos. Like I'm on this tour. Let's make it happen. And, for free photo shoots, these guys were just all about it. And yeah, like one thing came after another, and I was just shooting bands full time and getting paid to do it and traveling, right? Like especially with Lars, like we traveled the world together. We went to Asia, and I was a DJ in this band for him, and we opened up for this band called Cash Cash and Mission Wolf or a Man with a Mission. I think it was Man with a Mission, and we were like one of the biggest Japanese bands. So we went to Japan for a month together and toured out there.
No, that's super awesome. I actually met Cash Cash. I actually met him at Tuxedo Junction here in Danbury, but then I did a gig with them down in the Bahamas. But what I want to talk to you next about is how we met, dude.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if this is the actual event that we met, but we just were talking before this about a shoot that we were on together. Napoleon Dope, dude.
Yeah, Napoleon Dope.
Which, you know, that was my first time. I was shadowing Hunter Lyon, who was directing that video. It was a song with Jitta and Cierra Ramirez. Mm-hmm. And could we just paint the picture of what the landscape of what that shoot was?
Yeah, I remember me, Jitta, and Hunter, we just did a 2-week trip down to Florida in my piece of shit Camry. And I was young. Like you said, it was like 2013. So I wasn't that young. I was 19 at that time. But we just came back from Florida. I remember like Hunter, we just shot Jitta's whole album for all his music videos down in Florida where he grew up. And on our way back, Hunter's like, we got one more gig. We got to go to New York City and we got a hotel for us. And we're going to shoot Cierra Ramirez's, Napoleon Dope. And I remember she was pretty big at that time. She's a lot bigger now, but at that time it was like, I think one of my first, I was like, kind of not starstruck, but I was like, wow, like this is really cool. Because of how much went into that whole set, right? We shot at her like labels offices that were like in this huge skyscraper in New York City. We did a scene up there with like a sky, I don't even remember. The video must have came out. I don't even know if I've seen it.
Yeah, dude. I just remember. So I remember the label office, but then I remember, keep in mind, this is my first time like really like, learning the ropes from Hunter as like a video director.
Yeah.
But we ended up in like this sex dungeon, dude.
Yeah, well, it's crazy, man. Like, they were like, all right, we're shooting at this BDM. Well, they wanted us to check it out. So they're like, we're going to go check it out. And then I remember I didn't even know what BDSM stood for. So, we ended up, it was like in the basement of, I don't know if you remember that, but it was like you had to go through like the, like a janky ass basement thing outside, cellar door, outside a restaurant or whatever it was in an alleyway, and downstairs was like, at first it's like I said, I didn't know what BDSM meant, so there was like dog cages in where the bar was, and then they had prop rooms, so they had like a doctor's office, and they had like a dentist's office, and like all these a school office or a schoolroom classroom. And it was crazy, man. I mean, you saw some stains that you were like,
Yo, I remember, dude, and it's such a weird time, but like, that's kind of where I learned where it's like, sometimes what the lengths you'll go to get the shot, like if this is the location we need, this is the location we'll get, dude.
I'm actually so curious of like, why that even came into question. I wasn't really part of like any idea. Hunter was just like, yo, we're going. I was like, cool, I'm with the ride. And then he convinced the team like, yo, I ended up doing BTS photos for that. That was actually the whole reason why I went, because we just made it. And coming back from Florida, it made sense. But I'm curious on why they picked that location.
Yeah. So what was one of the first shoots that you had that was like oh snap, like this is crazy kind of shoot early on in your career?
I think like definitely the bands was like my first real take of like, I shot a lot of bands that were big at that time, and they're still big now, but at that, for some reason, like that year, those were the golden years of Warped Tour, right? Was 2000, and even before that, but like NOFX headlining, and remember, I think when we did one year with Paramore headlining, I mean, that was really, Warped Tour was a thing. It's not even happening anymore, which is a shame. But yes, shooting Suicide Silence was like one of the first bands that really like I was kind of starstruck. More on me, I was a huge fan. We worked with Asking Alexandria. We worked with The Devil Wears Prada. The guys that were headlining these festivals, we did a lot of photo shoots with. So that was that was like my first like wow moment of doing this,
Yeah, I also saw that you had photos in Inked magazine. Was Shonda?
Yeah, that was 2013. I guess it was around the same year that Napoleon Dope was. I might be mixing years up, but that was right when I moved to LA, either 2013 or 2014, when I first moved to LA, and we shot that actually outside Jitta's house. Really quick, long story short, when the only reason why I really went to LA the first time is Jitta first moved out there, and me and Hunter went to go visit him. And me and Hunter got an Airbnb in downtown Korea and Koreatown, and me and him actually got bed bugs.
Crazy.
Yeah, and I remember like we weren't supposed to stay with Jitta, but we were doing work with Jitta, and I don't know if we were shooting music videos or whatever, but it became like this whole thing. I remember Valentine's night. My parents still bring this up. I remember like Valentine's Day night in 2014. We were like stuck. I mean, I remember Hunter woke up and he had bites all over him, or however we found out he had bed bugs. I was sleeping on the couch, and we ended up sleeping at Jitta's for a few weeks after that. And then since I actually moved to LA that spring, I don't think I went home. I just stayed out
for
there.
that bed bugs trip. You just went out and you're like, I gotta stay here.
Yeah, but I remember when I first went out there, me, Jitta, and Hunter, we almost got mugged my first hour of land. So we both landed. I think me and Hunter went together. I think we flew together, and I landed. We both landed, and Jitta picked us up from the airport, and our first 5 minutes, we were downtown LA, right? Which is, I was in LA 8 or 7 years after that, but downtown was super sketchy. I didn't really know much about it, and I remember this guy. I was smoking cigarettes at the time, and this guy like came up to me and he's like, can I have a cigarette? And I was like, no. And he I think he pulled out like a pocket knife, or something happened where it just became like, I was like, I don't know if I like this place, And
yeah. So you're telling me on your first trip you got bed bugs, almost got mugged, and you just looked around and you're like, this is home.
Yeah, right. Literally, man. If it was the weather that really, whatever time we went, it was cold here. Valentine's Day, February, right?
Yeah.
So it was cold in Connecticut. So anywhere that was warmer than here, it was paradise for me.
So what was the first time you got published? Was it one of those times that we talked about?
It was the first time I got published was the Peter Says Denim stuff. So that was 2009 when I was shooting with Lars. Actually, Lars was my first published article with Alternative Press magazine. Peter Says Denim put me, and it's funny because I was just at my parents' house. I probably was in Alternative Press magazine maybe 40, 50 times. I mean,
amazing,
for
dude.
like of course the 3 years was almost every single month that they just had ads running, and they would do second page in and from there. But I had a lot of articles with like bands. We had a lot of my photos. The bands ended up using as promo in AP magazine or this magazine called Decibel. I think it was called Decibel, but yeah, a lot of the hardcore rock magazines like put my photos in it at the time. But that was from 2009, 2012, before the whole Jitta thing and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then moving forward a little bit, I saw that you did Webby's cover for Chemically Imbalanced.
Yes.
The photo for it.
Yeah. That he turned into. That's the one that he turned into a cartoon, right?
Yeah, like the puzzle piece. But it was originally referenced from a photo you took.
Do you know what year that was?
2014, 2015, maybe?
Yeah, I guess probably 2014,
somewhere in that
2015. Yeah. We took that photo, I think, years before that, and then that ended up just becoming. That was my first shoot ever with Webb.
Oh wow, I didn't know that, and it ended up becoming his album cover.
Yeah,
that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So how'd you connect with Webb in the first place?
Through JIT. Through honestly, we had a studio in New Haven called Upcrown. And I had that from 2011 to 2013, and I was there with Juice of All Trades, who works with Schoolboy Q now in LA. Jitta ended up having a room in there eventually, like a few years later, but I'm best friends with Juice's cousin, and me and Juice's cousin grew up together. And so Juice was one of the owners. This guy, Zach Bowler, who's a dear friend of mine, he was like a graphic artist. He helped run the studio. So it was a music production studio. We had two different, music production rooms, but then we also had a side office and a gallery space that we would hold events. That's how I met like Shawnee and Mint City. That's how I met Webb. But Jitta would come in a lot through me, and Jitta also, I think at the time, knew Juice too, but Jitta recorded there, and Webby did some recordings there too, and we did I'm blanking on his name. He's from the Rough Riders. Yeah, he's not X. Yeah, I forget his name. He was with the Rough Riders, but he would come in and he would record too.
Oh, that's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
What was one of your favorite memories from Upcrown?
I think like it was my first time being like I lived with these guys. I really didn't go home, right? I mean, I slept on the couch there. It was my first time being in a creative space with a bunch of people, and everybody had their own job, right? And it was just I was 17, 18 at the time, and it just it felt like family, man. It felt like like I said, you're around these creative people, and we're just so immersed in we're just creating all day long. And I love that, man. That was just such a cool experience and memory for me, and it just really holds dear to my heart because even though it didn't last long, I mean it lasted a few years, but everybody went off on their own place, right? And we went to LA, and a lot of Jews came to LA too, and I remember Webb came to LA, and Jitta went to LA, and that was the year that I moved to LA, was when all the guys moved to LA, right? So I kind of followed in their steps to go out that way.
Yeah.
But then Webb didn't like it. He came back here, and some people stayed, some people didn't, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, going back to a little bit of like the Vans Warped Tour era, I saw that you did some photos with Mayday Parade, dude. How was that?
Oh, man. Yeah. I threw up during that photo shoot.
That's crazy. Really I want to hear about that, dude.
Yeah, so it was really, really hot, dude. I mean, I don't know if you've been to Warped Tour in Connecticut, but they always put it like August, I think, or July. I think it was August. And it was just so hot. And I would back in the day, man, like with the lights, the photography lights, like I had these alien bees, they were called. You have to plug them into a generator, stands. I mean, now I have lights that are 100 times more powerful, and they're the size of my iPhone, and they're battery powered, right? So, it would take an hour to set up. So we're trying to find a spot, and that was the toughest too, is like, a lot of the guys, it's like, yeah, we can shoot in front of the tour buses, but everybody has that. Let's try to find something else. So we shot them on train tracks, and, it was so hot, man, and I used to wear like a hoodie a lot as a kid, and or like I would wear layers because I would have like pockets, and I could put stuff easily in my front pockets. So I remember like I would always wear a hoodie. I didn't really have cases at the time. I think I had like a little I had something like a backpack or something, but I always needed more space. I don't know why I didn't get more space, but I was so hot, like from the heat. That middle of the shoot, I remember and I was smoking cigarettes at the time, right? And I was definitely not drinking enough water.
Dangerous combo, dude.
And mid-shot, I'm like, 20 minutes in, I'm like, hold on 1 second, like I gotta go grab something. And I go over to my backpack, and I remember I didn't throw up in it, but I threw up on the side, but I put my backpack far away where they probably noticed it, but I thought they didn't, right? And
that's bad funny, dude.
Went back to shooting, dude.
Like the band's probably looking at each other, they're like, yo, did that photographer just throw up?
Yeah, right? And this 15, 16-year-old kid, actually even younger, maybe 14. My parents used to drop me off at this place. So it wasn't like, for Vans Warped Tour, there's really no, there's no shade, right? There's not really places you can go and hide from the
I remember.
I've
been to a couple Warped Tours too, dude. So I definitely remember that. So what are some of the other art? You said you shot, you were in alternative press 40 times.
Yeah.
What were some of the other artists that you worked with?
Mayday Parade, Silverstein. These are bands Silverstein and Suicide Silence were guys that I really developed a really close connection with, that I've still to this day, I'm in touch with them. Those are probably one of the few bands that I still keep in touch with. Like I said, Devil Wears Prada, Asking Alexandria, Christopher Drew is part of Never Shout Never, Guar. I did a lot of stuff with Guar. They used to have blood shooting out of their bodies, they were dressed up. They did Toads plays. I shot a lot of bands that after Warped Tour that I connected with. They would always stop on their tour runs, either at Toads, Oakdale, or Webster. Usually Webster was the main hub. We did the Used. We shot a lot of promos for them. We did it for a long time, man. I kept doing it after Warped Tour for a few years, but then I started getting more heavily into rap music, and then eventually now EDM, which is funny because I started off doing EDM with the Cash stuff,
It's crazy. I started out with EDM too, and I ended up transitioning into hip hop, and I'm still kind of in the hip hop world. But
yeah,
let's talk about some of your hip hop photos, dude. I saw you did a photo with Tyla, Yaweh, but he's bubblegummed apart.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, man. I feel like that was before he really started hitting fame, and Jitta was close to him, and also Post. I never got photos of Post, man. It was it's just one of those things. Unless I never asked to take photos of people. Like I never went up and I was like, yo, let me grab a photo. I kind of regret that a little bit. Just because of some of the guys, like Travis Scott too, he was another one that came to our studio, Upcrown, and I actually did photos of Travis.
That's crazy. I want to hear about that story too.
He came to Upcrown to show us his music, and then he played at Lazy Lizard, which it used to be across the street from Upcrown on Crown Street in New Haven, Connecticut. And he probably played in front of like 50 people. I mean, this is when what's his first album? It was the Owl. You know what it's called?
The McKnight one?
It was the one where he had Travis Scott as like one of his singles. Is it McKnight? It was Owl something.
I don't know. I wasn't an early Travis Scott fan. I'm a bandwagon that hopped on later.
Gotcha. Yeah. So he had a dope album. Anyways, he came to the studio, actually showed us his music, hung out for a few hours. We did a photo shoot with him, and he almost broke my camera, which is wild.
That sounds accurate, dude.
Yeah, he's an interesting person, man. He said, record this. Like he wanted to be on camera, sort of, but then he was showing us a Miley Cyrus Kanye West thing that he produced.
That's crazy.
I don't know if they were together, but both their names were somehow like involved in this song that he was doing.
Yeah.
And or showing us. And I remember he saw me with the camera up. I don't even know if I was doing video of it. I was just taking photos.
Yeah.
And he like grabbed my camera out of my hand and he threw it on the ground. And he pushed like my buddy Travis. He kind of like, I remember him. He was another videographer in the, cause I just mostly did photos. I didn't do videos, but he like pushed his camera out of the way. He freaked out. And yeah, like, so that was that. And I actually have a painting. So somebody made a painting. He just wasn't like a very nice person, but someone made him a painting, man. And it was like all sharp, took her hours. And he was like, I don't want this shit. And like, he left it
I've
there.
had some disappointing experiences with like, quote unquote, like celebrities, like people. And I try to always give them the benefit of the doubt that like maybe I just didn't meet them on the best day, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's what I like to hope for. I do see things with Travis like out about like there was this famous thing of him like yelling at this photographer's poor guy that was on stage trying to do his job. Yeah, and he like completely embarrassed this dude on stage. But I like saying, man, I like to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, and maybe I just caught him because I don't remember the whole interview. It was a long time ago. This is 2012, but it is what it is. And I remember he played at the show in front of 50 people. It was just kind of a cool experience because this is like one of the few people that, that I met that like really became that I met
Travis
before.
Scott.
Yeah, man. Like, A-class artist, dog, yeah.
So I want to pull it back to Tyla real quick too. Because I want to hear about like how that shoot came to be and like, cause I love that photo, the bubblegum stretch. Like it's a kind of a crazy photo.
Yeah. So he used to come over Jitta's house and we used to just like smoke together and play video games and just hang out. And he was there. And I think that photo is for Jitta had a clothing line he was starting and I forget what it was called, or maybe he was just making custom clothes and it wasn't anything specific, but we just did a photo together. And then I worked with this editor. His name was Cole. I forget his last name, but I worked with this editor that actually ended up doing Webby's photo with the hand coming out of his mouth.
Oh,
Webby introduced me to him. He's a Connecticut guy. I only worked with him on like that and the Tyla thing, and he made that photo come to life, man. Because that photo was insane, Yeah.
And you know who else you've shot with a bunch of times? It seems like NGHTMRE.
Yes. You've done we just did a music video. We just directed his music video for him. Yeah.
I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. NGHTMRE. So like since, we moved to Vegas, coming on 3 years, and I started connecting with a lot of the DJs at this club called Omnia Nightclub, they own a few clubs, Tao Group. And it's funny, not to go too far into it, but when I was living in LA, I worked for Tao Group and I did all their menu photos at their locations in LA. And then I moved to LA and they moved to Vegas and they connected me with the nightclub out there. So I started kind of just going and seeing who I can meet. And then we became really close, just friend wise, no work relationship at first with NGHTMRE and Martin Garrix and Steve Aoki. We started becoming like close with these guys. We would just go to the after parties, we'd exchange numbers, and then one thing led after another. And we started, me and Tyler NGHTMRE, we started working together. And we did a lot of his like promo photos a year or two ago for his last album that dropped. We just directed a music video called Never Loved You Like That that just dropped 2 weeks ago.
That's awesome, dude.
So that's out, yeah.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you about Tao Group a little bit because I just had my homie Dan on here who works with Tao Group Hospitality, but in New York. He works at like Marquee and stuff like that. So, how did you connect with Tao Group?
It was through the menu stuff. I think I guess, you know what, how I connected with them. So we own a travel company, right? So we worked for Dream Hollywood, which is partners with Tao Group. And all the Tao restaurants are like basically right on the side of Dream Hollywood. And when we went to go work with Dream, they were like, yo, Tao is looking for content. Let me connect you guys. And then one thing led to another. So when we moved to Vegas, one of their PR people put us in touch with the nightclubs out there. And I think I met a local DJ, and then that, we'll talk more about that, but that became like a whole thing. And, like I said, we started getting involved with DJs more on like the artist relations and managing DJs.
Yeah.
A lot of content still too, right? Directing music videos, doing, promo photos, and just helping out with the shows. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to talk about a couple more shoots, and then I want to get into your travel stuff too.
Yeah, cool.
Another shoot that I saw that you did, it was with Julia Rose and Cool Kicks LA, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
How did that shoot come to be?
I used to work, so when I first moved to LA, and that kind of went hand on hand with Chandra, with the the Inked magazine. So I was working for Arsenic. I guess not like I was working like directly, but I was freelancing and I would work with Arsenic every week. They had photo shoot Fridays, and we would go and like the biggest models. It was basically like Playboy House. They'd have a $50 million mansion. That might be exaggerating, but it was a really, well, for LA, maybe not, but crazy, 25 bedrooms, like pool parties every Friday. And they would invite photographers, and I became really close with the owner out there. And that was just from me. Like when I first moved out there, I shot a girl in Connecticut that they ended up reposting, and then that's how that connection was made. And I'm still really close to that company today. But we did, naked and boudoir photo shoots with like, and a bunch of photographers would come out, and then it turned into me doing like personal shoots with them. I did like some travel stuff, like I'd go to Vegas and shoot stuff with them. But they were working with Cool Kicks LA and Julia Rose.
That's what I saw.
Right,
yeah.
Julia Rose. Yeah, so Julia Rose, she used to date what's his name? One of the most famous.
I'm not gonna know it. I probably won't know it.
She dated.
I probably know who it is though, maybe, but not
Logan Paul. Yeah, she dated.
I didn't know that.
That's how she got so big.
Oh, that's
either
crazy.
Logan or the brother. Who's the brother?
Jake.
So either Jake or Logan. I forget who. She dated one of them for a long time. I know that for a fact. And that's why she became so big. Because when we first shot her, she was still big. She had a few, probably 100,000 followers. But now she has like millions of followers, and that's from that relationship. Probably also what else she's doing. But I know that really like made her grow is from that relationship.
Another person that you shot that has an incredible career that I follow personally is Russ, dude.
Yeah.
How was it like working with Russ?
Dude, Russ is he was one of the, like, I loved working with him, man. He was such a gentleman. Like I remember like there was, we shot on a set in Calabasas, and there was probably 50 people there, and he was announcing his new weed line that was coming out. I think it was, I forget, it's called Chomp. Yeah, Chomp. Yeah, Chomp. And when he showed up, he shook everybody's hand. You don't see that with big artists, right? And we've worked with a lot of big artists before, but he shook everybody's hand and gave everybody kind of like a minute or two, and he would ask questions like, what's your name? Like, what do you do? Like, and he would ask questions about it. Like, you just don't get that, man. Like, he took that time out of his day. That was big for me. I was like, wow, like, he was such an awesome dude. Yeah, I loved working with him.
Yeah, and then you also shot with real black coffee too.
Yeah.
How did that go, dude?
That was cool. That was recently. That was I mean, about a year ago, maybe a year and a half. Time flies, but that was cool, man. He came to our apartment in Vegas, and we shot some stuff. We didn't know what we were shooting for, but it ended up getting in like Elle magazine. It ended up getting in a ton of billboards like around Africa for like promoting his shows in like Nigeria, and he was cool, man. He was just really quiet dude, but he was also like a really sweet dude. It was really down to earth, and it was a pleasure. No rushing. I've noticed with big artists, you feel like you got like 10 minutes in and out. With him and Russ, Russ was a little bit different because it was like a whole thing with me and Black Coffee and Savannah, my girlfriend. It was just us three. He came alone, no security. I think he had security wait outside our apartment, but like he was like, dude, I got all day, like whatever you want to do, man. And we shot for a few hours, had some laughs, and yeah, called it a night.
How do you recommend that other photographers, carry themselves around, these talented, famous people? Because at this point you've worked with a whole ton of them, right?
Right.
So like what would you recommend on how to carry yourself and like not freak them out? Because there is like, you know what I mean? You don't want to like be a weird vibe. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a story and then I'll go into that. So I worked with Loud Luxury, they're pretty big, and they're dear friends of mine too. And I remember a lot of these guys, it's funny, man. Like you would think like they would have like security with them, whatever, and that's not the case for all of them. And these guys actually, their label trusted me enough to tell them to just get in the car with me and go to the desert. And I made a joke on the way to the desert. I was like, haha, like now I'm going to kill you guys. I never met these guys before. This is like the first hour. No one laughed. Like it was like so
That's
awkward,
crazy,
dude.
dog.
It was so anyways, like to kind of bring that back, I don't do that. Don't, there's a level to it because you have to. You want to be yourself. I mean, people can tell most of the time when you're being fake, right? So you want to be yourself, but there's limits. You don't want to like talk too much, and but you are who you are, and you shouldn't let anybody change that. And there's definitely a level of professionalism that you need to have on set as well.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be all suit and tie and make the guy uncomfortable because he's a human as well.
Yeah. How did you bounce back from that Loud Luxury comment, dude? Like, you got to shoot it. Everyone was like, all good.
Honestly, like, I didn't know. Well, it's just, it just became awkward in the car. And then we did our photo shoot, and they used the photos. They liked the photos, but I just kept seeing them at shows, and we just became friends after that. And, it was just about consistency. They always saw me, and, we kind of knew each other more intimately from that photo shoot, right? It's just like outside the shows. But then, we became homies, and just like Nightmare and Martin Garrix and all those guys, right? We started just developing a relationship that was outside of work, which I think you can gain closer connections with somebody when it's not all business like all the time,
Yeah. What advice would you have for a photographer that's like just getting their feet in the game now, their skin in the game now, that you wish was advice that was given to you early on?
That's a good question. I think advice I would give like another photographer would be to like, kind of just take as many opportunities as you can, and try to connect as many people. I had an ego as a kid, and I started really young, right? So like, I wish there was more. There's a level of like doing free photo shoots and stuff like that as well. But like, I wish I took more opportunities of like, I was kind of like, oh, I don't know how it's gonna pan out. I'd rather not do and stay in my safe area. So I wish I took more opportunities as a kid, but other than that, man, I give any advice to any inspiring photographer to just reach out to everybody. Just keep shooting. You just want to keep connecting. That's the biggest thing. I don't have a big social media following. I'm not really like, all my work is really word of mouth for the most part.
I was just about to ask that, like, what was the catalyst for like your career where you're at now, dude?
Yeah, it's just, making sure everybody, has seen me, like in a sense, like it's just showing up. And I always tell my girlfriend Savannah too, it's just like, we're tired after working 12-hour days. And I'm just like, yo, let's go out to this event because who knows? I got some amazing advice from a really successful marketing team that we used to work with. And these guys, you know, they pay for dinners every night. I think I asked them when I was like, man, like, you know, how much money you guys spending on dinners? Like every night you guys are bringing in and paying for these people and just paying for the whole table. And he's like, all you need is that one dinner that can make you $1 million or multi-millions, you know?
That's actually incredible advice, dude.
Yeah.
And, you know, let's pull it to, you know, speaking of Savannah, let's pull it to Sin City Creative. I'd love to talk to how that came to be and all that.
So we met 4 years ago, this month actually. And Savannah was super interested in getting involved. So it started off with her like helping me out with shoots, and then just down the line, probably like a year in, well, we started doing the travel stuff, right? Really, that's what really started all that. But the editorial stuff too, I needed help with that, and she was really good with ideas, and we were learning on like her, you know, showing her lighting techniques and actually shooting now. So she's shooting. So that's how Sin City like came about, man. We just wanted it. I didn't want it to be Chris Fulcher photos anymore, because obviously we do everything 50-50 now as far as business goes, you know, like, and you know, we come up with ideas together and we kind of bounce off each other, and we've been in that 4 years now, man. Yeah.
Have you guys had a crazy experience on set together where you're just like looking at each other and like, what's going on here?
Yeah, probably happens all the time. We shoot, well, especially like in Connecticut, because we come home for like a month at a time. We do 4 to 6 shoots today. You know, we got 3 photo shoots after this podcast, right? And we call it almost like Hell Week or Hell Month, for example. Like we just kind of get in and get out, but we book as much as we can with artists that, you know, make sense. And you know, and then we go back. But there's nothing like in particular. I'm sure like if I really thought about it more, that there's probably something but nothing that was like too crazy. It's just more of like, for like example, I just shot Casey's new music video 2 days ago, and we lit his toaster on fire by accident.
Crazy, dude.
And it became like kind of like a fight or flight situation, because then it was like, oh my God, are we going to burn down the kitchen? So there's stuff like that has happened that, you know, that happens every week though, right?
Yeah, there's always something, dude.
Right.
Yeah. I want to actually get into some of the travel, you know, stuff now.
Yeah.
Like, how did you really get into that in the first place?
So how it first happened was me and my friend Anthea Mo, we went on a cruise together in 2019 or 18, 2018 or 19. And we did a month cruise together. My parents came too, and we were just friends, but she came and she was a big time model. She probably had like 500,000 followers. She's got like almost more than 1 million, I think now, or close to it. But she was still a big model, and I knew her through Arsenic, and she had like the pool. So we were going to on a cruise to Europe, and she had all these followers out. There was some beautiful spots in Europe, like hotels that I knew, like if I just DM them, like I would never get a response. So she had that follower pull to
make it happen.
Yeah. So we showed up to, you know, we got confirmation to shoot at some of the most like luxurious, like secret hotels that like people can't just, you know, pop up at. And so on our cruise stops, we'd have like, you know what, 6-7 hours to get off, go to this hotel, shoot, and then, you know, get back on the boat. And we did that a few times during that trip, and that's what actually kickstarted it. And then I met Sav, and me and Sav, you know, like I said, we you know, became into shooting for numerous hotels. I mean, different countries. We've been to so many different countries over the last 4 years.
I was going to say, how did that turn into, you know, going to Aruba, going to Santorini?
Yeah, it's just ever since that trip, man, like I said, that was just a 1 month thing with my friend. And then I didn't really know what was going to happen after. Anthea was doing some really big stuff. So like the travel thing, she wasn't doing. And I moved back to Connecticut that summer, so I wasn't in LA anymore. So, you know, and like I said, well, she's still a friend of mine, but we didn't continue doing that together. It was just kind of like she had her own modeling stuff. But when me and Sav met, we just kind of sat down and we're like, hey, look, like, you know, and I told Sav, I was like, you know, I'm doing this. Like, would you like to do this for me, or, you know, do this with me? You know, her and I started traveling, and we started just, you know, developing a marketing team and pushing these, you know, pushing hotels and travel tourism boards, anything luxury travel based, right? We tried to kind of get it down to a niche, but hotels or car companies, but of course in different countries. And we do stuff in the US as well,
Yeah, I'm curious to talk to you a little bit about like the business side of this. Like, are they travel companies that are paying for this and they're looking for like photos that they can use to promote these destinations?
Yeah. Sometimes so there's certain hotels that have so many, or not tourism boards necessarily, but hotels or companies that have millions of followers and they don't want any more, like, because we're not influencers, we're travel content creators. I guess that's the big difference, but they have so many people hitting them up and trying to make content for them or promote them as an influencer. So hotels that have like a big amount of following that way, they necessarily don't want to pay people. So that's where we look for other revenues, where it's like, hey, look, guys, would you guys be down the trade? We'll give you the photos, you give us the content, and then we can sell it in our own way. Or like we make money, from Instagram, promoting it, and just kind of keep trying to boost our page. But then we have a lot of hotels, which is like, most of the stuff that we do, or tourism boards that don't have that, following and drive and need, that they have a budget to pay guys like me to create, images and videos for them to promote travel to that.
Yeah. Was there a place that you traveled to where when you got there, it was just all, they had no clue what's going on? Because I know I've dealt with that personally.
Yeah. More like tourism boards are pretty good about knowing what's going on. But yeah, it's definitely hotels. There's been hotels. We've been very blessed with the hotels we've worked with, but there are some hotels that like will show up and they're like, and it happens a lot more than I probably like, but it's just we'll show up and it's just like, who are you and what's going on, and like you're doing a photo shoot, and it's just like
yeah, it's tricky though, because like, trust me, I've been in those situations and it's like those hotels have so many moving parts that it's like.
Well, it's the guys that are like, they're hiring us are not even most of the time on location. Usually we have a point of contact, but sometimes we don't. And they're just like, yo, like you'll meet Mark at the front desk and Mark doesn't even know we're coming, because they're people that are probably like in a whole different country that are helping run their PR stuff. Forgot to tell them or whatever the case is, right? It's more for the stuff like when they're paying, they're pretty on it. But when it comes to like us just showing up and trying to get content as a trade type of situation, these guys are very like, and understandably they're just kind of like, they're more focused on anything else and they forget. And we've definitely dealt with that a lot.
Yeah, no, I've definitely dealt with that too. I did something recently because I did a trade with Go Campers in Iceland, dude.
Oh, nice. Cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But another spot that you went to that I want to talk about is San Clemente.
San Clemente,
yeah.
Kempinski. Yeah.
How did that come to be?
That was just, like I said, we have a certain layout of how we connect to these hotels, and some of it's word of mouth, some of it is word of mouth kind of travels on its own, but we cold call and we just have like templates of like, hey, look, like and sometimes we'll do it when we're there in the country, and sometimes we'll do before we even book the trip. So San Clemente wanted to work with us, and they were like, yeah, like I think we were already gonna be in Venice for a layover, and we're like, why don't we stay a week? Because Savannah's never been there, and I've been to Venice so many times. I love Venice. It's such a fascinating city. So with San Clemente, we ended up staying, and it's a private island, and it's right off St. Mark's Square. So you have to take a boat from St. Mark's Square. You can see it from St. Mark's Square. It's not far, but we would take you take a boat. They have like these little shuttles that take you back and forth. But it's crazy. I've never stayed in an island that has a hotel, and the whole island is owned by San Clemente.
And I want to talk to you about like, where do people see a lot of your travel photos? Like, have they got published? Like, are people like using them in like ads and stuff like that? Yeah,
you go to like a lot of, like it's definitely brochures and flyers and stuff that these guys are using. I'm sure they're using a lot more than what I'm seeing. I don't really stay too up to date with what they use it. So we have kind of like a base price, and they use it for whatever they need. But, we're doing promotional videos too. I see the videos a lot more, but we do like Instagram reels for a lot of the guys. We do promotional videos for their website. We'll shoot their menu photography. We'll shoot their if they have even inside stuff, right? Like Kempinski will have like emails that will go around throughout Kempinski key staff members that they need photos of staff, they'll need photos of their staff members. So we'll do stuff like that. Room photography, you'll see that on the website. But like I said, but a lot of it is these guys just want viral clips of stuff that's happening at their location.
Like aesthetic type stuff.
Yeah, right. So like we do a lot of cute couple stuff, and just if we go to the hotel. So for example, like Kempinski, they offered this private. Now it's a third party, but they offered this private boat that would pick you up, and they'd bring champagne, and you go around the canals and stuff like that. Right? Is they're kind of looking forward to promote on their pages so that people will book with them. They're like, wow, but especially even more if they offered on. So we just shot for the first time at Kempinski. They're offering, I think coming up next year is a private, I don't know if it's a private, but it's a movie experience outside the hotel.
That's awesome.
And they have like a popcorn machine and staff members. And Savannah and I were the first ones to model in it, promoting that they're going to be doing this. And you actually look over the ocean or the water and you can see St. Mark's Square and see Venice Island in the distance. It's so cool.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a great experience. What are some other experiences that you guys have been able to do together because of the photo travel business?
Some of the other experience we've got is just the traveling, man. We've just got to see some really cool locations and did a lot of stuff that I would never spend my money on. For example, like the boat around the canals is really cool. Something like that I probably would spend my money on. But but it's expensive. I mean, it's not cheap. It's like 500 euro, 1,000 euro, whatever it is. But so I got to experience a lot of things. And Savannah and I got to experience a lot of things that I would never do unless it was like a special occasion. So I'm very blessed to experience that throughout my work, right? And get to see stuff that most people don't get to see. Especially luxury based, right? So
yeah. And what was one of the favorite trips that you went on?
I think so. We really fell in love. This is our second year to Santorini, and Santorini, we're busy in Santorini. I mean, there's a lot of Santorini is like one of the tourist capitals. I mean, they get and it's funny, they still want guys like me to come in and promote tourism to Santorini. But Santorini is known as the whole island is hotels, and there's just new ones getting popped up every day. So that's kind of what we do is we do a little research, see which new guys are coming in. But we have a few solid guys that want us to keep coming back. But it's really like what makes because people ask me all the time, like, where's a place what's your favorite place? And I'm like, I don't really know if I've been there yet. There's a lot of places like I could go to Europe every single year to the day I die and still see something new. And it's interesting perspective to say that because now we're kind of, I don't want to say we're putting a halt on Europe, but we're trying to look at other locations, harder locations. So we're looking at Africa, places that maybe in 10 years from now, for me, it might be a little bit harder for me to get there. But to go back to what you were saying, yeah, it's really the people on the island that make the experiences for us. So Santorini, we fell in love with the people, the hospitality. Some of our, I would say, really close friends over the last 2 years live there, and we just, they're locals, and we just became really good friends. We text every day,
I want to focus a little bit now on, the photographers that are out there watching this, right? Mm-hmm. So if someone was a photographer wanting to get into travel content, I know how you got into it, but what would you recommend to them to get their feet wet in the travel industry?
What I would recommend is that I would have to think about it. It's more because I'm still learning, right? So we're only 4 years in, and I've been doing photography my whole life. But I think really what it comes down to is you want to do something that you ultimately feel a passion for. So with the travel stuff, when we first started, I would wear sweaters and I would wear I would cover my tattoos up, and you can see, man, I got head tattoos, right, and neck tattoos, and I would cover all those up. I even got more since then, but we live in a world where tattoos were taboo, and certain clothing and marketing in general was very plain Jane still. It still is. And I didn't want to do that. So it's I started, I told Savannah, I was I don't feel I'm not passionate about the way I'm dressing. I'm kind of just putting on a front, and especially because I'm modeling in these photos with her. Right. So it's we felt like to kind of stand us away from everybody else was to just dress how we normally dress. I'm promoting underground clothing lines like Dead by 5 a.m. in New Haven, or just stuff I like to wear, like cool clothes, and show my tattoos. And I feel like that that style carries to I don't want to say the younger demographic, but just more of a modernized demographic, right? Like I feel like you can relate to somebody more like that. The plain Jane stuff, man, it's just everywhere. It's just not relatable to kids our age, or, tattoos are not a taboo anymore. The CEOs and the biggest companies in the world that have tattoos, so that was like a big thing for me. So like, it was hard to start with that too. So I was doing the sweater stuff, but then we started like promoting this almost like taboo, artistic approach to it. Hotels, I think, were probably a little bit more eager, like, I don't know. And they still are, but now it's kind of catching more like wildfire, where people are like, oh yeah, like they're kind of understanding that the world is changing. Europe especially is changing a lot, I think, faster in their marketing viewpoint than the US is. It's funny, man, like we just, you would go into hotels and some of you could tell by the art pieces out there. They're so abstract and crazy compared to, like, you go to Hilton, you're gonna see like a painting of like a like a waterfall. But then you go to like some of the most like luxury hotels in Europe or Asia or wherever, and like they'll have like crazy things, crazy paintings.
You know what, too? Earlier in this podcast, you said one thing that you wish you did earlier on was take more opportunities. Mm-hmm. What are some of the biggest risks that you have taken?
I would say like, going down that step line, as far as like, I was in a sense sacrificing our career on something. I was just like, hey, look, like let's see if it works. I felt like, but it was time spent, right? So it was just sacrificing like what we're doing for what we believed, so that was really important to me. Yeah.
Well, then my big question is, what's next for Chris Fulcher?
Man, we have a lot going on, man. We have a marketing team that we're now curating and we're building throughout Connecticut and Las Vegas, and we're getting guys now to kind of like, we're directing a lot of music videos, and we're doing the travel stuff and just content in general. We're trying to do something different with how marketing campaigns are. So we're now in the works of that, and it's exciting. It's really exciting.
That's awesome. Did you want to talk a little bit about like some of the DJ dabbling, like management?
Yeah, I can, for sure. I'm down. We moving to Vegas, we just met DJs, like local DJs that needed help. They just were one-man bands, the guys that were opening for the big guys. So we work with a guy, Mikey Francis. He's a dear friend of mine. And I don't want to say we were like I don't want to say that we were like directly managing him, but we were helping on the sidelines with stuff. With shows and bookings and content, especially. These guys are opening up at Omnia nightclub, and for Tao Group, they're opening up for the biggest guys in the world. But these guys, like I said, they're one-man bands, man. They don't have the help, and they need it. And there's a lot of them in Vegas. And we just found like this, it all starts off with like, we don't do it for the money at first, and obviously like we need to get paid and we need to make a living out of it, but we wanted to help these guys. We saw how talented they are, and we just, we started working with these guys a lot closer. It probably started off as making content, like we did a photo shoot, and then it was like, yo, like you need help with a lot more. So then, some of the guys will help like brand direct and like do, or do all their social media and vice versa. So we work with about, I would say, 5 to 6 guys in Vegas consistently when we're there. Granted, we have the Connecticut business, we have the travel business, which is still all content related, but we're constantly, every season, we're somewhere new. So our goal for 2024 is to try to stay in Vegas longer, because we're probably in Vegas 2 months out of the year for the last 3 years. I mean, it's just like, why am I even, why do I even have this apartment? It's like, it's crazy, but...
So, I mean, it's good that you're busy, and I know that you are very busy, but if people did want to work with you, Chris, how could they make it happen?
Yeah, just you can find me on my website, www.chrisfulch.com. Like I said, I mean, we're always willing to fly out somewhere, and I think that's what we do best, man. We're good at living on the road. So you can find me through my website or follow me on Instagram. It's Sin City Creative, or my travel Instagram is Chris Fulcher.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Well, I super appreciate you coming on the podcast, dude. I think we had a really good conversation today. Excited to hear a little bit about your experience, and I think other photographers, entrepreneurs are going to get a little something out of this.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for having me, man. It was fun.
Now, I want to share with you my thought of the day, and I talked with Chris a little bit about this after the podcast. But I want to say is that trades are okay. If you have a skill set and you want something from someone else, don't be afraid to trade. It doesn't have to always be about money. If I'm a videographer and I'm trying to go to a beautiful vacation spot, let's reach out to the vacation spot and see if they would trade some video in order for me to get a discount or hook it up. So don't be afraid to trade. Not everything is about money. If you're trying to follow your dream or gain success in your field, there's one thing that's really important, is that you need to believe in yourself before the world does.